Basically, I have a lot of scrap fabric, so the goal is to work through this stash bit by bit.
Which we like. No, shan't.
So I'm going to be using these two, and yes, I changed my top to match it. I just know that I want to make something really cute that I'm actually going to wear. So I'm thinking hair accessories. I'm going to make a scrunchie, a headband and a hair bow. So we're starting off with the scrunchie, and I'm using this old, like the bottom of a skirt that I have. Ideally, I want to make a giant scrunchie, and I want like this to be 18 inches. That would be like the ideal length according to ChatGPT. So I'm just going to measure it and make sure that it's fine. This says it's about 17 and a half. 17, which is perfect. This is actually leftover fabric from a skirt, so I'm just cutting off the sides and the top so I have a clean piece of fabric to work with. I was just cutting and hoping that I could actually get 2 scrunchies out of this. So I was wrong. This is not going to make me 2 giant scrunchies, but it will make me 1, I think. So I'm just going to stitch along the end, and then this is going to be like the massive scrunchie. And then for the width, we can just work with what we have. This is where I definitely took a detour from ChatGPT, because I thought I could sew the sides and the top at the same time.
Oh, don't be ridiculous.
So I thought, let me do this slightly different from the tutorials that I've been seeing, because maybe there's a hack around it. But clearly I've made a mistake because my scrunchie is stuck inside this tube and it just can't come out. So I ended up cutting it through one of the seams that we had literally just made, which meant my scrunchie would be a tiny bit smaller. But honestly, it is what it is. So now I'm just turning the tube so that it's right side out. And now we can add our elastic. I'm using about 7 inches of elastic, and it's 1/2 inch wide. This is one of the rare instances where I don't mind adding elastics and stuff. I'm just gonna stick this all the way through backwards because it's gonna be easier. I thought a voiceover might be easier to explain than just me yapping, so I ended up sticking the loop turner through the elastic backwards and then pinched or grabbed the top of my elastic and pulled it all the way through. Normally I hate doing this, but it actually worked. Guys, it's never been this easy for me to add elastic. That's insane. Love it. And you can see the scrunchie is starting to form. Once you've pulled through that elastic, you can stitch it in place, and literally the last step is just tucking in those raw edges. So I'm tucking one end of the scrunchie into the other end of the scrunchie, and I'm folding it so that those raw edges are hidden. I ended up stitching it by hand, but you can stitch this on your sewing machine if you want to instead. That's what it came out looking like. Honestly, I'm such a fan. I'm definitely going to be doing this with more of my scrap fabrics, especially now that I know how to actually make it properly. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and let's move on to the next sewing project. I'm consulting Pinterest to help me find the inspo that I want for this linen hair bow. I know I want it to have almost like a double layered bow look, and like the little tendrils at the side a little bit. So I'm just trying to find something that is as close as possible to what I'm actually looking for. Okay, I think this is the closest I've seen in terms of what I want. So I just need to find a tutorial that will teach me how to do this, because I've actually never made a hair bow before. So we're starting off with 2 rectangles. I'll put the measurements on the screen, and I'm just going to take that first one and I'm going to fold it in half and stitch across it long ways. I'm just using a regular straight stitch on my sewing machine, and then I'm going to flip that inside out, right side out. I'm going to press that so it's flat, and I'm going to fold it again, right side's facing, and then I'm just going to stitch along long ways, or the width this time, just to hold it in place. Then I'm going to take that piece and flip it right side out again, just find the midpoint and fold it, and then we can put it to the side and we'll come back to it in a sec. Now I'm moving on to this second piece, which should be a square. I just stitched or pinned around it using about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, or as little as I could get away with. And now we have the foundation, we can move on to the scrunching part. This is kind of like what I want it to look like. I just need to make sure I get it definitely like in the middle, so it doesn't look like a wonky little hair bow. No one wants that. I think this is fine. So now I just need to get this all the way through and stitch it a few times so that to hold it in place. So as you can see, I'm just taking my hand needle and a thread and I'm pushing that through the needle, or the midpoint of our bow as many times as possible, just so that it's secure and in place. This is easier than I thought it would be, but it definitely helps if you use a bulky needle. So we scrunched the bow, now we need to scrunch the tendrils part. So I'm taking that square, mine ended up looking more like a rectangle, but it worked. And I'm just folding it to find the midpoint, and then I'm taking my hand needle again, and I'm just going to be sewing through the fabric, like up and down. You can call it a basin stitch, running stitch, whatever works for you. We just want to make sure that we have add gathers to the tendrils so that it matches the gathers that we've added to the bow. So once I'm happy with the way that it's gathered, I'm just going to do a double knot to hold it in place. I've been trying to decide for like the last 5 minutes if I want to add another bow to this or if I want to keep it as is. I'm trying to like envision what it's going to look like when it's done. Like with this and then the tassels, is that going to work? I hope so. I think I'm going to leave it as is. So now I just need to stitch like the strap that we're going to add to it and then add it on, and we should be basically done. Guys, we're on to the last step of our hair bow. To be fair, I didn't really measure out this strip, but you want to take a strip. I'm stitching it so it's about 3/4 of an inch wide and maybe let's say about 6-7 inches long, and then I'm just going to trim off the excess and flip it inside out. I pressed it as well just so that it could be flat and neat, and I'm finding like the midpoint, and then I can grab my tendrils and my bow and fold it over. I'm just kind of trying to gauge or see what it's actually going to look like when we're done. This looks so cute. Once you're happy with what it looks like, you can stitch it in place. I'm using my hand needle and just matching thread to sew it, just because it might have been a bit too bulky in my sewing machine. You can try if you want, but yeah, I just did mine by hand, just going up and down as many times as possible and stitching along the length of that little strip to hold it in place. And then we can trim off the excess of that. You just want to make sure that you do like a double knot or a triple knot, as many knots as you need to, just to make sure it's really secure. Now, because you can see the intensity on my face as I was stitching this, I'm sure my mouth is even hanging open at one point. But yeah, once you have stitched it, you can trim off that excess. I would just leave a little bit just in case it frays. You can use like any kind of hair attachment that you want on this. You can use like a hair slide or a clip or like a barrette, is that what they call it? But yeah, you can literally put anything on the back. But this is the reveal. I think this is my favorite of the 3 DIYs. Tell you what, we're gonna rate each one out of 5, so let me know in the comments what rating you give this. We still have a bit of scrap fabric left, so I'm going to be using this to make the headband. Again, we're starting off with our 2 triangles. Measurements are on the screen, and I'm just going to take both of them and then folding them long ways. And again, I'm just stitching along the length of both. Honestly, I love how easy these tutorials have been to do without really thinking. But yeah, we're just going to stitch along the length, and then we're going to flip it inside out and press it. Normally I hate adding elastic to any form of tube because it's just so frustrating and something always unhooks. So hopefully this is easy, as much as it looks easy. Hopefully I can get it done in the one pull. Yeah, we did not get it done in one pull, but we did get there in the end, like 4 tries later. So I've folded the ends of our rectangles just to hide the raw edges, and I've also just stitched where we've added the elastic so that it doesn't budge. Now I'm going to take one side of the elasticated band and the rest of the bigger rectangle, and I'm just folding it over it like this, and I'm pinning that in place, and I'm going to find the opposite end and I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm almost like I'm sandwiching the elasticated side with the longer side of the headband so that it starts to form or shape. Honestly, it did take me a sec to figure out the folding part, so I'm happy we got here. And just for that last step, we're just going to stitch along where we've pinned to hold that elastic to the overarching or the wider headband. And this is what our third little cutie came out looking like. This headband is definitely giving summer vibes. But yeah, let me know what you think of this one. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. Remember to let me know what you'd rate each of these DIYs, guys. I'm definitely going to be doing more fabric scrap videos. If you are looking for more easy sewing videos, then make sure you check out this next. That's all.